What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. You have tuned in to the podcast where we dive into the deepest, the darkest, the murkiest waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's Rex with 3 X's. Don't forget that. You might also know me as a.k.a. the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, a.k.a. the man with the golden voice and the velvet tongue, and most importantly, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Yep, there he is. What up, Pops? DNA testing almost conclusive, and we will find out once and for all. But I mean, look at me. Is there any doubt that I am the son of glam, the front man for the band? Just smoked a few grams, got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Babaloo Bop Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. I'm feeling good today. Coming to you as always from the Pink Pussycat Lounge, and joined as always by my good friend over here, Mr. Keith Hernandez. Keith Hernandez puppet, that is. Give him a round of applause. He is the 1986 world champion from our beloved New York Mets. Sometimes he offers color commentary. Sometimes he plays the bongos. Most times he just sits there and just, reflects, listens. This is, of course, the No Frills podcast. Why don't you get any frills, Rex? Why? Why don't we get any? Because you get plenty of thrills. What are those thrills, Rex? You're looking at him. Look at his face. Of course, I am the hardest working man in show business, bringing you legendary interviews, and I've got one for you today. And this one is one that I've been looking forward to for a while. I'm very excited about this one. Not even going to pimp my own bands. Love Sword. Still looking for players. If you happen to be a virtuoso, hit me up. Send me some audition shit. However musicians contact other musicians. Anyway, we're jumping in. We are jumping in. We got a good one for you on Pod Scum today, so let's get down to it. Where is he? Oh, we're waiting on you, Les.
Here we go.
Hey, the best things are always worth waiting for. There he is, right? Huh?
Here we go.
Les, how's it going, buddy?
Well, after working out the technical issues, it's going right.
I know, right? Isn't technology supposed to make everything so much easier, right?
Well, it's, the logistics of the thing.
I'll tell you what, though, man, you got yourself a good connection, and I appreciate you, taking the time and the effort. Of course, if my audience out there has been living under a rock, this is somebody who I consider a real pioneer in the music scene, Les Evans from CRYPTIC Slaughter. And you know what? You are a pioneer to me, man. You are.
Okay, I appreciate that. I do. It's
even though you're not wearing one of those Davy Crockett hats and wandering around the wilderness, man, you're still a pioneer. You can still be a pioneer.
No, I appreciate it. There were a lot of bands that were all kind of organically formulating that same kind of sound around that time. And it was interesting, though, because it was all kind of happening independently.
Right.
I can't really say that I was influenced by the band Siege out of Boston, but they were doing some really crazy heavy shit. Stuff too. Of course, DRI had their thing going on. Napalm Death had their thing going on. Wehrmacht in Portland had their thing going on. So, there was a lot of bands that were doing the speed thing for sure. But
what I find most interesting about you guys is you guys got things kicked off in 1984. Jesus Christ, you guys were freaking kids.
It was a kind of a daycare at first, more than a band. I was the oldest at 17. Scott was 14, and there was another kid named Adam who was in the band at first. He was 14 or maybe 15. We really didn't know what we were doing at all. And I was the ringleader because I was 3 years older. So
Well, I gotta ask. First of all, I'd be remiss in not asking, and I'd probably get quite the lashing from my viewers. But you guys, those first albums, and I'm mainly talking about Convicted and Money Talks. Obviously, your frontman back then was Bill Crooks. Whatever happened to Bill Crooks?
He was in another band or two after Cryptic, and then he ended up moving. He was running a business, and he ended up moving to Texas, which is where he still resides, as far as I know.
Okay. So any kind of contact with him? Any kind of inclination that because obviously everything that was old becomes new again. People really love nostalgia. Any chance that he ever comes back into the Cryptic Slaughter picture again?
He had his chance.
He had his okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I just think because obviously those are such iconic albums. I think a lot of purist fans would probably say, that he's the voice that they most identify with Cryptic Slaughter. Obviously, he was on those very seminal first albums.
Yeah, well, for sure. I get that, but anybody who's heard Brad Mallon perform live will understand that he can do Bill Crooks and a whole lot more.
He's incredible. Yeah.
So I'm not worried about our front man.
Absolutely not. Oh, no, I wouldn't be either. Brad is certainly a force. What was this business in 2018 though? These legal issues where all of a sudden you couldn't be Cryptic Slaughter and had to be Low Life for a while.
Yeah, well, that shit is still being worked out in the courts as we speak. So
who the hell is out there right now that wants to claim Cryptic Slaughter?
Well, the other half of this original fucking lineup.
Lineup,
actually, not the original lineup, but the lineup on the three first albums.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I'm gonna keep kind of tight-lipped about that for now.
Understood. Yep.
Just because it's still being worked out, and but there will come a time when I am going to tell every single fucking thing that went down, so everybody knows about the shit that Scott and I went through over this fucking crap. So you'll hear it eventually.
Well, I do feel like though that it's a little confusing, because when I look at the timeline of band members, you have obviously been there since the inception of the band. You could certainly stake the claim that you are, obviously an original member, possibly even like the founder of the band. So it was just a little confusing.
Yeah, no, I'm the founding member of Cryptic Slaughter. It was my band. I was 17 years old. The other guys were 14. It was my fucking band.
Right.
Period. And I invited Bill to join, and I invited Rob to join.
Right.
And then after they left, I moved up to Portland and reformed a new band, also called Cryptic Slaughter, with a whole new lineup. Yep. And so it's one of those things where we're being forced to pay a lot of money to prove what's blatantly obvious to most people.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate because we're not like a big time band,
Right.
Like a cult band. It's so fucking stupid that we just can't go and play and have fun. But it's about control and
absolutely
and all kinds of shit, that all the worst parts of the music business that you've always heard about and read about, that's
rear in their heads. Yep.
Exactly. What
understood. So the thing that I'm the most curious about, that I find so fascinating when I listen to those early albums, is because you guys were at the age that you were at, though, what was the creative process like? Because you guys were really touching on a lot of the things that were going on in the social landscape, in society, certainly inserting your your political slants on different things. Where was all that angst coming from, and what was the creative process like? You being the oldest, were you rolling out a lot of those lyrics and that music? Was it a collaborative effort? Because you guys certainly, for being so young, certainly had some some very set views on things.
Yeah, we were raised in, we were like middle class kids raised by, liberal, forward thinking parents.
Sure.
And Santa Monica was itself a liberal town. It was a melting pot before, it became the kind of gentrified, rich place it is today.
Right.
It was Dogtown back then, and there was I had kids in my class who lived in mansions, and I had kids in my class who lived in slums. That's what the mix was. So,
yep.
And so we had an understanding of social justice. My mother was involved in local politics.
Yep.
She knew she was on the chair of the Recreation and Parks Department, so she knew everybody on the city council. She knew the mayor. And so I was raised to have political awareness from a really young age, and so that drove it. And we didn't like what we were seeing. It was the Reagan era. This shit just hit us in the face, like boom. It's right as we're hitting adolescence. You can't have any fun anymore. You can't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
No more drugs, no more sex. Oh, AIDS. Oh, look, you can't fuck anybody anymore.
Yeah.
So the party is over.
Yeah.
And of course we're pissed. Right when we get to the age when we're supposed to be having fun, it's like, nope, it's all done.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. That drives part of the angst. But we figured out that music was a really good channel for our anger.
Sure.
If you're pissed off, you can go and like get in a fight with somebody or be a pain in the ass to somebody, or you can write an angry song and with your buddies and have a release that way. And that was kind of what it did for us, I think.
Well, I think what I find the most interesting too, though, is that you guys, even at your young age, you guys received a lot of credit and a lot of accolades from the music world as being able to, seamlessly, fusing together, very crushing, but still maintaining a lot of melody and groove, but yet seemingly able to play lightning fast at the same time, which nobody else seemed to really be able to, key into that sound at that time. You guys were really doing something very different.
I appreciate you noticing that, because even as like fast and aggressive as we wanted to be, we never wanted to lose that sense of melody, those hooks.
Right.
We wanted to have songs that stuck in your head. We wanted to have chords that you sing along with. So that was always a component, and those writing those riffs was always a priority for me to try to craft a song that was memorable while getting your blood pumping at the same time.
Right.
And that's what I love that. The speed did for us. It was like it just was an adrenaline rush, and we weren't doing drugs. We were just playing fast music.
Right. Well, so now fast forward to today's era, and obviously, so much has changed in the music business nowadays. What is the right way, or like, what is your vision for where Cryptic Slaughter goes now as far as like releasing any new music? Obviously, it's a very singles-driven market. People aren't having the attention span to sit down and listen to long play albums anymore. I know you guys have teased and made comments about that there will be new music coming from this lineup from Cryptic Slaughter. So what format does it come out in? Are we going to get full albums, EPs, singles?
Well, we've got enough material for almost 2 albums at the moment.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that's good for fans to know.
Full albums. Yeah, no, we plan on releasing a full-length record. It's not going to be, it'll be like 35 to 40 minutes in that range. We're not looking to put out a double album or anything like that.
Right.
But it's, we're not trying to recapture the past. In other words, we're not trying to sound like Convicted. We're not trying to sound like Money Talks.
Right.
But what we are trying to do is to recapture that energy, that vibe, that absolute kind of rush that we got from that music when we were young. And the stuff that we're playing now, and that's the other thing, is like, you know, when you talk about speed now and bands that play fast, well, we're not going to try. Here's something that I've always had to explain many times. We never tried to be the fastest band in the world. That was never our goal, but some people put it on us when we were younger. We're definitely not trying to do that now. We still have most of our new songs have blast beats, but they also have like up-tempo fast beats as well, you know, like Slayer speed or what have you, or Excel speed. That kind of stuff is mixed in with the blast beats as well as the slower stuff. So it's more of a kind of a mixture of tempos. But the thing about it is these songs really move. You're not going to sit there and ever get bored by any of these tunes. Right.
That's
they're all in about the 2.5 to 3.5 minute range somewhere. We don't have, there's a few really short ones, but not a whole lot. But there's no like 12-minute stoner songs either.
Well, as I mentioned before, Les, I don't know if anybody has the attention span for a 12-minute opus anymore.
Yeah. No, that's
a different world.
But I do think there's something to be said for a group of songs being released together as a statement, as opposed to, oh, here's a tune, here's another tune. Like these 12 songs or whatever, they have something to do with one another. They complement each other.
Right.
So I still believe in the album format for that purpose. Like this is
I do too. As a 49-year-old man, I remember just being able to sit down and listen to an album from start to finish and really, truly experience the album. And what I like to think of as what the artist had anticipated the listening experience would be. You know, a lot of albums, you know, back then especially, they flowed cohesively and they were kind of just one giant experience.
Well, sure. And bands don't just throw songs on an album in a random order either. The song order is crucial for the flow of the record and how it's supposed to unfold to the listener. Right. So that's also important too. I miss side A and side B.
Me too, brother. Me too. You know, we're from that same era too. You know what I mean? So, and it seems like it's a long gone era now where it seems like it's just like these artists are just like, you know, hey, you've got 2 minutes. Show me your best shit quick or I'm moving on. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah, no, I get that too.
It's a very tough time to be a musician. So now, obviously, here we are in 2022. The world is probably not any more or less. Well, I don't know, maybe more. It depends on what your slant is on it, but still just as fucked up of a place. So there's obviously certainly no shortage of material. But is it harder now at the age that you're at now to still be able to tap into that angst and still write songs in that same vein, or can you still get just as angry nowadays in 2022?
I'm probably more pissed off now than I was back then. There's no shortage of anger with this guy.
I didn't think there would be.
No, I mean, especially look, you know, what's happened in the past couple of years with the whole fucking the Trump fiasco and the BLM aiming and COVID, like the whole thing. This country train wreck hard, and we're not done. We're not out. We're not clear by a long shot from that shit. So, you know, I'm really kind of disappointed that we're still having to sing about this shit. Singing about 35, 40 years ago or whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty sad world when you can, you know, be in the 21st century and watch an African-American man pretty much be executed, you know what I mean, right in the street. I mean, how far have we really come? You know, it's pretty scary.
No, exactly. It's just out in the open now. That's the difference. Everybody's got a fucking video camera with them at all times, whereas in the past that wasn't the thing. So that's really what the difference is now, is that all the atrocities are being brought to our living room in an overwhelming amount, to be honest. You know, it's hard to process all the stuff that comes, and I don't blame the younger generation for just being like, what the fuck are we supposed to do with this?
Right. Yeah, we just
like, really, we're supposed to solve this fucking mess.
we're just kind of leaving them standing there holding the bag. Yeah,
I mean, I remember when I was that kid feeling the same way. Like,
sure.
what the fuck are we supposed to do with this? And it's even worse now. So
well, on a lighter subject, are there guys you know like you as a guitar player, and you know obviously you get asked to death over the years about influences and this and that, but if I word it differently, who are some guitar players that you just really stop and just say, geez, when that guy's playing, I will listen to whatever the hell he plays. I just love the, you know, whether it's tone or whether it's what they play. Who are some guys that you really dig?
oh man, like all time or modern
Yeah,
day?
all time. Yeah, all time.
It for me, it really all starts with Jimi Hendrix,
Okay.
And you know, I'm not talking about the radio songs. I
Right.
have like 60 Hendrix albums of very studio live. It's you know, and you know, I'm always going to gravitate back to the classics like
Sure.
Tony Iommi and Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Like from the thrash scene, the Adam Siegel from Excel, who was one of our, you know, one of the bands we used to play with all the time.
Yeah.
He was one of my favorite guitar players. His tone, just his style was unique. Of course, he went on to play with Infectious Grooves and other bands too later on. And Dr. No from Bad Brains.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Was a big influence on me. And then of course, like the local, you know, Slayer was the local band for me when I was a kid. Metallica had already moved to the Bay Area, so the band that we used to follow around all over the LA basin was Slayer. So I have those guys were a big influence for sure, particularly in the early days. And then like Grant from Suicidal, the first Suicidal record. God damn, that's some amazing guitar work. And then I knew Rocky. Rocky was a buddy of mine. He and I were jamming actually before he joined Suicidal. Rocky George. So he was another great local guy. First guy I ever started playing Ibanez.
And one of the few guys who would be who was willing to take the risk and wear one of those hideous Pittsburgh Pirates hats too. Those weren't the most flattering of baseball caps. Those cake box
made it a fucking like his own like trademark, didn't he?
It became his trademark. It sure did. Yeah. And now, when I was coming home from work today, you know, I knew I was going to be talking to you, and I was revisiting some of that, some of the Cryptic Slaughter stuff. Now, obviously, you know, you guys have maintained, you know, your own following. You know what I mean? There's certainly people, you know, who will, you know, I'm one of those people who certainly believe that those albums are extremely important, seminal, as I used the word before. And I try not to just throw that word around about albums. But when you look back at your catalog of work, you know, where do you think Cryptic Slaughter's legacy is?
I think that first of all, we were part of that first wave of really fast bands.
Yeah.
We were in on that. We were also in on the early wave of crossover.
Yes.
Because people forget that in the old days, punks and metalheads didn't like each other.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be fights at school
between
punks and metalheads just because they were punks and metalheads.
Yeah.
But that started to change, right? And I had friends who were punks, and like I would loan them my Slayer and Venom and Metallica records, and they would loan me Minor Threat and Bad Brains and DOA or whoever the hell else it was. And so that started to come together, and then pretty soon you started seeing both at shows. And then you would like the second show we ever played was Descendants, DRI, Cryptic Excel, and DOA. Wow. And so that's a decidedly mixed bag of band. Yeah. And it went off without a hitch. You know, it was like 750 people there. And that was 85. So that was early days. So I think our legacy is partly in that scene too. But with our three records, the first three anyway, I like to think that they're all different. And so we weren't necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel every time. It was just evolving for us the way that it did.
Right.
I think that Money Talks is probably the most popular of the three.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that Stream sounds like shit, the production anyway, because I really like the material on that record. We played three of those songs live, and they sound a lot better now than they did.
Yeah. Well, so where are you guys when you guys do put out new music? And you know, I'm speculating here, but you know, from things that I've read, obviously, and from stuff that you've just said, obviously, you know, we will be blessed with new Cryptic Slaughter music. But then once the music is out, you know, where is everybody at this point in their life in terms of touring? Because I talked to a lot of musicians on here, and obviously, if there is money to be made in the music world, everybody is really hanging their head on getting out and playing live, and depending on the sales of merchandise. Where are you guys at this stage of your life in terms of approaching touring?
Well, we do like quick hits,
right?
You know?
Right.
Like 1-2 weeks at a time is probably the most we could work out, because you know we all work full time.
Sure.
But you know, it depends on what the situation is. Like we're flying down to Mexico to play this festival. That's just a 1-show deal. We flew to Holland to play 1 show in May at Pitfest. So that's a lot of what we're looking to do. We're, you know, ideally we get on like a tour like you know, we're playing these shows with Napalm Death. We're only playing three gigs with them, but that's the perfect setup for us is to open for a band like those guys who are total pros and so nice. We got along with them great. So Maria too, they're fantastic, funny dudes to hang out with.
And so now at this stage of your career, as opposed to when you guys were young, what's the creative process like now when Cryptic Slaughter gets together and creates music? Does one person kind of take the reins? Is it a collaborative effort these days?
It is a collaborative effort, but it usually starts with one person. The thing you have to realize is that 3 of us are in Seattle and 2 of us are in LA.
Right.
So it costs us about $600-$700 just to band practice.
Right.
So what usually happens is that that Menno, our bass player, or me, or now Dave, who just wrote his first song for us a few weeks ago, we come up with a song and kind of a loose arrangement, and then we'll track it on a DAW, you know, and that way we can present it. And then I'll send what I like, drums and guitars. I'll send that to our bass player. He'll write and track a bass line on top of what I've written, and sometimes that can really change the complexion of the song. And then when you've got the program drums and guitar and bass, and we send it to our singer and let him come up with the vocal melody. So it's a process where you know it goes from one to it's like an assembly line. Right. And then of course when we get done with the demo version, then Scott comes in and puts his idea of what the drums ought to be on top of the program drums that we've done. So it really is a step-by-step thing where everybody is contributing to their own, you know, their own lens of how they perceive the tune. And it's been working out fantastically well for us. Like, we have some amazing talent in this band. Incredible talent in this band.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I'm supposed to have Menno on, and the last couple of Wednesdays seem to work best for him. And we've missed each other a couple times, unfortunately. But I have been keeping in contact with him, and he's a great guy. What I didn't know was when you texted me the other day, though, and said about him playing with Bow Wow.
No, not Bow Wow the rapper. Bow Wow Wow, the 80s band.
Okay.
Candy, Bow Wow Wow.
Annabelle. Okay.
Yeah, the big new wave band. And they play like arenas with the Go-Go's, and they'll get on the show with like a bunch of 80s bands. Like Menno knows all the dudes in Culture Club because he's played with them so many times. It's still the same 4 guys, and he says they're all the biggest sweethearts in the world.
Yeah, you know? I could see that. I could see that.
And he's not anymore, but Menno also used to play bass in Mac Sabbath.
Yeah.
The Black Sabbath McDonald.
Yep. And I know he's got the Doom thing there too, though. Isn't it Beyond the Monolith or Behind the
Behold the Monolith.
Behold the Monolith. Yes. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. If you're into the Doom stoner thing, they're really great. And Menno plays with his fingers in Behold.
Yeah.
Where Cryptic plays with a pick.
Yeah, he sure. So, like, would you say now that we're talking about members of the band, now, do you feel like that like this is a good stable lineup where everyone, seems like they're rowing in the same direction, so to speak? Because obviously, it must be very tough and daunting nowadays in the music world for to really keep the morale of a band up and not want to just say, Jesus Christ, there's no way to make any fucking progress here. I'm throwing in the towel. I mean, I can imagine as, not as a musician myself, but I can imagine that with, there being such an influx of bands, but no real way to, it seems like everyone's kind of grabbing for the same nickel nowadays. And it seems like it was always probably a tough business, but seems very tough now.
It is. And you make a very important point. And the thing is that before, when we were Low Life, we had Matt Levo playing second guitar. Now, Matt, of course, was the original guitar player from Repulsion, and he was really the driving force behind us getting back together in the first place.
Okay.
And so Matt was a big part of what we were doing. And about a year ago, he quit. And it wasn't out of any bad blood or bad feelings. It was just that he was growing in a different direction than we were.
Yeah.
And he'd written a bunch of materials and submitted it to us. And these were great songs, just amazing, but they weren't Cryptic Slaughter songs.
Right.
And we all kind of came to that same conclusion. And so Matt left, and we were left then with 4 guys, and it really refocused us, and it set us off. Now, here's the other thing. With Matt's songs out of the picture, we had my songs and Menno's songs, which were way more hardcore.
Yeah.
Like Matt's tunes were more power metal. Now we were left with a fewer songs, more streamlined, but they were faster and harder. And that's really where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
And like Menno has a song that sounds like it belongs on Convicted. And I don't even know how he did it, because I can't write songs that sound like that anymore.
Yeah.
But he did it perfectly. And so then I knew I wanted another guitar player, though. I didn't want to leave it as a 4-piece. So for a couple of months, we sat with it, and Brad called me one day and he goes, "Hey man, you still want to get a second guitar player in this band? We better do it, because we got this gig coming up in Holland."
Right.
And I said, "Right." And I said, "I've got a short list." And he goes, "So do I." And I said, "Who's number 1 on your short list?" And he said, "Dave Webb." And I said, "Me too." So that was already a good omen.
Yeah.
Because we were just as concerned that the new guy, whoever that was going to be, fit in with the band emotionally as well as musically.
Right.
It had to be somebody who was pro, but at the same time laid back, had a good sense of humor, no drama, stable home life. All these things are super important when it comes to keeping a band together.
Absolutely.
And we couldn't have gotten a better guy than Dave Webb, honestly. He has proven not only to be the stellar musician that I already knew he was, but he has also been a great bandmate. He's just a fantastic kind of he's breathed a new life into the old songs.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the old tunes, he's added so much, and it's just because he has this incredible mind for music. He's like, "Well, hey, how about if I do this here? What if I do that there?" And I'm just like, yeah, more, bring it.
Yeah. And it's invigorating. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's invigorating, and like I said, it renews it makes old songs seem new again when
Sure.
you add maybe a twist to it. And I don't want people to think we're changing the songs, but we're just kind of adding more, adding texture, adding more rhythmic elements. It's just we all are having a real good time playing the old songs now, and it's the same thing with the new material. When we give Dave, like, here's the new song that's already written, he can add something to it that it like elevates it to a completely different level, and it's like, wow,
that's like, exciting. Yeah,
it really is. He's an amazing study of music. And Menno is too. Menno is a virtuoso as well.
Yeah.
Those two guys nerd out hardcore.
Yeah. He's a musician. He's a musician's musician, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
I get that vibe off him. So let me ask you this, because this is such a polarizing topic. Technology, has it been bad for the music business ultimately?
I don't know. That's hard to say, because the music business used to be controlled by a bunch of old fucking white guys that chomp cigars and made choices on whims. Now, Frank Zappa will tell you that was better, because those guys would just leave you alone. And like, I don't fucking know what this is. Let them fucking do whatever they're gonna do. And now, like, anybody can put out a record. But the problem with that is there's too many fucking records to listen to. You couldn't listen to every band now, even if you had all day, every day, just to listen to new bands. Forget about it. Too fucking many new bands. So it's great in the one sense that even a band with no record label and no money can put out a video or a song and get noticed if they happen to catch the right wind. But at the same time, it's more difficult because fewer people are willing to spend money on music now.
Absolutely.
It's available. Like, why would you just go to Spotify or YouTube? Why the fuck would I want to buy somebody's album? So that makes it all now. Bands are only making money now off of merch and off touring, because they're not making any royalties anymore, unless you're super big time,
Right. So should record labels have gotten in on the ground floor on this? Like, should they have been like the Napsters of the world, and could there have been any way where where the record industry could have kept some control over this and monetized it in some way, or did they miss the boat on that?
It's tough, because Napster is one thing. That's music sharing, but like in the old days, I would like record my Metallica album on a cassette for a buddy of mine or whatever.
Right.
I get it. It's a bigger scale now than the old days or what have you. But it's like the music business now doesn't want to invest in musicians anymore. They want to invest in sure things, know. And that means like shitty pop music that is the same fucking thing you've heard a zillion times with the same shitty chorus and lame, I love you lyrics, or why'd you leave me lyrics. And to a degree, I guess it's always been that way. But there was a time when like you could put out more interesting music, or try to be different. But I just think that now it's such a different climate that the best situation I think you can be in for a band is to be on a label like Nuclear Blast, who isn't like, they're not Warner Brothers, but they're big enough to distribute, and they've also got, they're a genre label. Like, if you buy Nuclear Blast, you know what kind of band you're getting into.
Yeah. I know. I know. I'm not getting a Michael Bublé album.
Right. So that the specialty labels, I think, are still a good alternative, a good option for bands who want to put out records and not just and have records released by a label that makes it seem like it's a more legit enterprise than just something somebody recorded in their basement, which is, not to put that down, because some of that shit sounds just as good as anything I've heard up on major labels. So
sure. But is it advantageous these days to be on a label? Like, would you encourage a band, if access to a label was there, or is it better to be like a do-it-yourself band these days? First of all, are you guys on a label currently?
We're not, although we're in kind of the early stages of negotiations.
Talks. Okay. So it is still advantageous to be on a label to an extent.
To me, it is.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm an old school guy, but to me, it lends an air of legitimacy.
Sure.
To the whole thing.
I agree.
And also, we want somebody to pay for the fucker.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always nice.
We want it done well and want somebody else to pay for it.
Yeah. Is music in good hands these days, though? Like extreme music, like the kind of envelope pushing music that you guys make. Are there any young bands out there that have made you stand up and take notice? Is anybody really taking the torch, or really carrying the flag? Are there any bands out there that have caught your eye?
Oh, there's tons. There's so many great. That's what I say. That's what the drawback now is. There's so many
Too
good
many.
bands.
Yeah.
They get overlooked because there's just not enough time in the day. This band from Austria, Insanity Alert, fucking amazing. They've never even played in the US. They play all over the place in Europe. They're so much fun. They take a total old school approach. It's kind of like skate, like humor. Just trust me, check them out. Like,
Will do.
They have 3 or 4 records, and their lives are fucking amazing. They're the most fun, great band. Violator from Brazil. I wouldn't necessarily call them a young band. They've probably been around 20 years now, but
love them.
That's another great thrash band that are kicking ass. Let's see. In Seattle, you've got Endorphins Lost. That's their. There's a ton of bands in this town. Filth is Eternal, Cult Sickness, Impulse Noise Grind. See, I'm going to get in trouble if I leave somebody out.
I know. I took you down a dark path here. It's like giving your Academy Award speech and leaving somebody off the list.
No, there's a ton of great young bands, and I'm always amazed at how good this stuff is now. Like how good these bands are. I'm like, wow. It's inspiring.
Are you still just as excited about music? Like like when you get up on a stage, does it still fill you with that joy and that exuberance at this point in your career?
Absolutely. It first fills me with like the feeling like I want to puke, like that, like you're so hyped up, and there's like the nervous energy and live. A million things can go wrong. Like one thing can go right.
That's true.
But no, when you hit that groove, when you're playing live and everybody is together and you're like you're all moving forward in the same space and it's a pretty special feeling. There's not a lot of feelings like it in the world. So it's kind of like getting barreled in a wave. That's another thing. Like, unless you've done it, you don't know, you don't understand what it's like. But playing live and is very exciting. And the energy that you get from the crowd is also very unique. That's why stage actors talk about performing a play versus doing a movie or whatever, because that live feedback is so much part of what they're doing.
Oh yeah. So right out of the gate, 86 convicted, 87 Money Talks, 88 you had Stream of Consciousness, Speak Your Piece was 1990, and then the material kind of stopped. Do you look back at your career with any regrets and just think, God, if we would have just been one of those bands that was just, every 2 years just putting out an album? Are there any regrets? Are there any regrets about maybe not being? Obviously, I know extreme music is not, always going to pay off with commercial success. I mean, like when you're playing that kind of music, there's obviously a lot of love and passion involved in it. But do you look back and say, geez, if we would only been as active as like a DRI or Suicidal Tendencies, some bands that that are mentioned, in the pantheon of great bands in your genre, do you have any regrets about like inactivity or any of that kind of stuff?
Well, the thing is that the reason we couldn't tour the way DRI did is that we were all in high school.
That's true.
And
you got a curfew to get into.
Well, and also, like, there's the whole thing. Even after I turned 18, the other guys were still underage. That's me transporting minors across state lines. It's weird, but that shit's all for real, right?
Yeah.
So like, we had to limit our touring to the summer. And even then, it was like the Western states for the most part. We didn't, we didn't venture out to a full tour until '88, when everybody was finally fucking of legal age.
Right, but even the studio releases, though, I mean, like there haven't been like a plethora of them, though. Like, do you wish that over the years you had released more music?
Oh well, I mean, we broke up, partly because we just didn't know how to communicate with each other, right? We'd been together for 4 years. We had a rough time on the road. We had some interpersonal shit going on, and nobody gives you a fucking manual for this stuff when you're 18 years old to tell you how to talk to your bandmate and
you're
how
working
to,
without a net.
Right. And so, so we're dealing with that, and 4 years is a long time at that stage too. And honestly, I had thought that this music had peaked. I thought, look, the future of music is Jane's Addiction, is Faith No More, is Fishbone. That's where I thought, and music did go that direction. However, it also went more extreme too. And I didn't see that coming. So like the band that, like when CRYPTIC toured Europe in 1990, we came back. We never officially broke up, but Brad and I were in another band in Portland that happened to be the biggest band in town at the time, called Sweaty Nipples. And it just kind of overshadowed what CRYPTIC was doing, because we were playing to 1,200 people. And it was a big deal locally. And so we just kind of, we were moving into a different direction at that time. It was so, and I didn't really continue following hardcore music that much into the 90s. After I ended up quitting music and I just didn't play for, I put my guitar down for probably 10 years at one point. Yeah. Like, I thought, this is it. I'm just done. And believe me, I never, ever expected anybody now to still be listening to what I did back in the mid 80s. I really thought that music was made for a specific time period and a specific crowd, and that was it. It was, once it was gone, it was going to be.
You captured a moment in time. Yeah.
We were the antithesis of classic rock. Nobody's going to be playing this on the radio in 100 years. They're still going to be playing Led Zeppelin and the Beatles, but they're not going to be playing this. And so I really had no preconceived notion that there would be any longevity to this music. So, but then when, I started to, Relapse Records got in touch with me. They'd been trying to hunt me down for like 5 years.
No kidding.
Because, Well, Metal Blade forgot to pick up the option for Convicted and Money Talks. So that's one of those things where, like, all they had to do was tell their lawyer, yes, we want to legally continue to own this music, but they didn't.
Okay.
And so Relapse called Metal Blade, and Brian Slagle told them, like, no, they're like free agents. And I didn't know this either. You know, like I'd been away from the music for so long for the music business. And this guy calls me at home and he tells me, he's like, I'm from this record label. I'd never heard of Relapse Records. I didn't know who the fuck that was. And they were like the biggest indie metal label at the time. And I was like, who are you, dude? And he goes, there's this guy, Sean Pelletier, I guess. Sean Pellet is what it, you know, Pellet is what.
Oh, yes. I remember him getting very famous with the Bobby Liebling documentary.
He's in all over that motherfucker. He
was
managing them at the time. He was responsible for them coming back. If it wasn't for Pellet,
great documentary.
Pentagram would have never had a comeback. He drove all that.
Yeah,
but he was the guy who tracked me down, and he was like, dude, I've been trying to call you for 5 years. I've been, it's like, you know, detective fucking trying to figure out where the hell I am. And I go, so what's up, man? And he goes, well, we want to reissue Convicted and Money Talks. And I said, why? I said, who would give a fuck? I go, nobody's going to buy those albums.
Right.
And he goes, those are like two of my favorite records of all time. And Matt Jacobson, who was the president of Relapse at the time, was also, you know, just as enthusiastic as Pellet was. They were the two guys running the label. And I was like, I was so like anti-music industry at the time. And I didn't believe anybody who said they're from a record label, I assume was full of shit.
Right.
And so I talked to him and I vetted him out, and I finally said, you know, okay, even if all I get out of this is a CD for me and my kid, well, because I didn't even own the CRYPTIC CD at the time. I still had the vinyl, but I didn't even get a Metal Blade CD. So we went through the whole process of the reissues, and they did everything so correctly. I was blown away. And I still am impressed by how they've handled their business. Excuse me.
And it's great it's great when and you know, it's got to be kind of rewarding on some kind of a personal level too when somebody reaches out and as you mentioned, even if the stuff gets re-released and it doesn't necessarily like bowl anybody over with the sales, it's nice to know that it's got to be satisfying on a personal level, like just to know that, hey, that like just somebody telling you, hey, these albums were super important to me, you know. I mean,
I mean, that was cool, and I appreciated that. I still didn't think anybody would give a shit, but the fact that they went to that extent, and then I found out, I was like, shit, this is a real record label.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So are they involved with are you still involved with them at this point?
As far as the reissues, yeah.
Okay.
Those two records have been available now through Relapse for 20 years, whereas they were only available through Metal Blade for like 6 or 8.
Right. So I would be very remiss and probably take again quite the lashing if I didn't ask when is there a timetable on when we will see any of this new Cryptic Slaughter music? I had seen things on the internet, and of course, you know, obviously you take everything with a grain of salt on the internet, that we would see new Cryptic Slaughter music in 2022. But now we're getting into the tail end of the year. Will that come to fruition, or will it be more likely 2023?
I don't think we ever made that promise.
Right. That's wishful. That's probably wishful thinking out there.
No, there was a situation where we seemed to be very close to a record deal, and it fell apart because our guy at that label parted ways with that label. So it's kind of like when you're like the ink is almost fucking dry or on the dotted line, and then it's like. And that's why I didn't fucking tell anybody, because this shit happens over and over again. So it is. I don't want to put a time frame on anything, because you just never know. It's out of our control, right? But I will tell you this: somehow, some way, we will get new music put out, even if we have to put it out ourselves, because we're not getting any younger.
Right. That's true. Who the hell ever said this old age stuff was going to be easy? Jesus.
That's for damn sure, man.
Yeah.
Like, even getting up on stage again, if you want to be, I want to be on stage and I want to be active. I want to be pretty like,
Right.
I want to be into it. And yeah, I gotta fucking stay in shape. After we're done with this, I'm gonna go fucking either skate or take a walk or something, because I need exercise every fucking day.
It's tough. Like in January, I'm going to be turning 50, and for some reason, I don't know. I never really put a lot of forethought into birthdays, but this one's really bothering me. I think it has to do with the fact that my father has passed away, and I think you kind of get that feeling like where someone said something to me very poignant the other day. A friend of mine who's got 10 years on me. He's 60, but he said, it's very harrowing thought to think that I'm probably in the last like 20 years of my life. And it's like, that's a shitty, depressing way to look at it, but I guess it's pretty realistic as well, though. You start to think about your mortality. It's like once my father passed, I started to think like, okay, obviously barring the thought of bearing my own kids, which is an awful thought, I'm now next in the, proverbial on deck circle, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and I have a son who, believe me, has no problem reminding me about when an old motherfucker I am all the time.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
So no better way to feel old than to look at your youthful son.
I know.
But I think everybody. And by the way, sorry to hear about your dad.
Oh, thank you. It was back in 2016, and he did die prematurely, like at 68. But he had a lot of problems, and diabetes just kind of cut him right down to the bone. But admittedly, even he would say that he didn't really make the proper lifestyle changes. I work in healthcare. I am a nurse by day, so even I couldn't talk any sense into him. And if you're not willing to have some self-discipline and make the proper, dietary and lifestyle changes, it's a manageable disease. But unfortunately, though, my dad still wanted to live the way he wanted to live, and he had a bad sweet tooth, and you end up where you end up. It's like an alcoholic with a bad liver. I mean,
yeah, no, that's true. And but to your point, I think that everybody has one age that really terrifies them.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was 30 actually.
Yeah.
And once I got past 30, I was like, fucking food tastes the same, and
yeah.
So and now, I'm just like, there was a time I didn't think I was going to make it to fucking 55.
Right,
but
sure.
here I am, and I'm more concerned with quality of life than quantity. So I definitely, that's part of the reason why I try to stay in shape, and it's because I do want to be able to get out of bed and feel good about myself, to be able to get up on stage and bang my head and have a good time, and do all the stuff that you can do. And believe me, there has been a couple times in my life where I've gotten out of shape, and it's just like, all right, this has to stop. I can barely drag my fat ass out of bed.
I know.
Every morning.
I know the feeling.
I know on like this,
Yeah. Well, and I'm in upstate New York too, so like now it's getting into that time of year where it's starting to get cold and everything starts to feel a little stiffer and a little more sore, and trying to get up in the morning and go to work, and everything's kind of creaking and aching a little bit more than it used to. You know what I mean? And it's I'm sure you can relate. I mean, all of a sudden you got pain, and all of a sudden you're waking up every day and there's pain in some spot that it wasn't the other day.
I'm surprisingly free of typical aches and pains.
That's good.
Much to my girlfriend's amazement. She doesn't understand how I can do the things I do to my body without resulting in like.
Well, I don't think a lot of people do give musicians enough credit for the physicality of it. You certainly, speaking to your point earlier, about being active on stage, that's certainly from a fan standpoint that's out in the audience watching that is much more appealing than just seeing, like somebody sitting on a stool with an acoustic guitar, or, 3 or 4 guys just standing in the same place all the time. I mean,
well, yeah. The other thing too is that like I grew up as an active kid. I played soccer for 10 years. I
Yeah.
skateboarded, surfed. I did all the stuff that a Southern California kid would do.
Sure.
And even here, when I was raising my kid in Seattle, he played soccer. We got out. It didn't matter if it was raining. We got out. We played soccer every day. And that kind of commitment to activity is like over long term is like what helps keep you in shape. We used to
Sure.
go skateboard. We would do whatever to to get up and get out. So I think that's important also. You have to be active. If you stop being active, your body will atrophy quickly.
Absolutely.
Especially when you get to our age.
Sure.
It's
Absolutely.
especially important. And yeah, I don't want to sound like a Metamucil ad or whatever.
Like an ad for Geritol.
Well,
hey,
no,
man, I mean, we are getting to that age, but I guess,
20,
I guess, like you say, as long as we keep fighting it, I mean, and not letting it get a foothold, I think speaking to your point, I think that's very, very important though. And I am fortunate enough to have a job where I spend a lot of time on my feet, which can be twofold because you get home and you are exhausted sometimes and don't feel like you have any more to give. But, I get home from a typical work day and I've been on my feet so much that I actually probably have gotten in the equivalent of walking like a couple, several miles, so.
Absolutely.
So that so it certainly it certainly plays well into the into having a job, but probably very much like being a musician. You get up on stage and if you're moving around and probably had a pedometer on you or something tracking how much how much jumping or running around or walking you did, it probably would equate to quite a good workout, I would imagine.
Totally. And looking good is great, but feeling good is
it's paramount. It really is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so everything in your life starts with you like waking up and feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what was the impetus to you moving up to Seattle? Like, why Seattle? And I just out of curiosity, how long have you been there?
I've been in Seattle since '98.
98. Okay. So you came there. After the big Seattle grunge explosion, when it seemed like the world had its microscope on Seattle there for a while.
I was in Portland when that went down, and in fact, when I was in Sweaty Nipples, we got some of that attention, even though we weren't a quote unquote grunge band.
Right.
But Nasty Mix was one of the labels that was interested in us and actually recorded. After I was gone, Sweaty recorded a record for Nasty Mix, but it never got released.
Right.
But I ended up moving to Seattle for a girl, essentially.
The age-old story, huh?
Yeah,
Did it for a girl.
Yeah, I moved up to Portland for a band, and I moved to Seattle for a girl.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up here, and then I got her pregnant, and so my kid's here, so I'm not going anywhere.
Right. Well, I did notice too, and I'm curious. When I wanted to kind of get a feel, because I will do this sometimes when I've got podcast interviews scheduled, just to kind of see a person's general, personality or how affable or how they come across. When I go on YouTube and I look for Cryptic Slaughter interviews, oddly enough, I don't see you doing a lot of these though. Are you somebody that is not really too fond of doing these? I certainly appreciate you doing one with me, but are you somebody that doesn't like to do the press part of the band?
No, I don't mind it. I like Scott has kind of been the face of the band for a while. He's like way more Mr. Social, and since he's in LA, like he's like he's always got a photo op. He's always like, hey, here's me and Rob Halford or whatever. And
well, I guess my rationale is that, like, when I look up guys, especially like musicians in bands, it's always nice to get one of the, quote unquote OGs, you know what I mean? And that's not to impugn or take anything away from the current guys that you have in your lineup, but, but you've been there since day one, you know what I mean? So like your take on things is obviously a little different than guys that have been in your band a shorter amount of time.
Right. Well, yeah. Absolutely. And in the old days, I did all the interviews, because they were all by mail or by phone. And that was, I did everything. I did all the merch. I did all the interviews. I did all the correspondence. And so that was a job in and of itself, apart from what I was doing with the music side of things. So, but you're right. Like, well, here's an example. Like the other day, no, this was before we were supposed to play Northwest Terror Fest, and Dave got COVID, so we had to cancel. But one of the local radio stations up here, KISW, wanted to do an interview with somebody, and I said, Scott, go ahead and do it. I said, I offered to do an interview with these guys like a few months ago, and they ignored me. So
yeah,
I guess they're not interested in me. Why don't you go ahead? Because they didn't even respond. So no, yeah. I don't like dislike doing interviews. Not at all, particularly when it's like this and it's easygoing, and I'm not being, most people are very cool. Sometimes interview people can rub me the wrong way. Yeah. It's, if I'm being, if there's like accusatory shit being thrown around, it's like I didn't come here for this. Right.
Well, you got to know when to back off, and you got to know when to back off and stuff too. And I think some people don't know like when to not press things. Like at the top of the interview, like when you were talking about like legal stuff and stuff that you want to stay a little more tight-lipped about. I mean, like you have your reasons for staying tight-lipped about that, and I'm nobody special that deserves to have that information or be entitled to share that information with somebody. That's something that you have to work out. Amongst your team.
Right. Exactly. And it's one of those things where it's inner circle only until until it's sorted. Yeah.
Right.
So you could be Barbara Walters, and no, Barbara, I can't talk about that right now.
Well, I'm going to be the first to tell you that I'm glad that I'm not Barbara Walters, but I certainly wouldn't mind a couple of her paychecks. I think she's done pretty well over the years, but I will certainly end on this. I really do appreciate you being so generous with your time, and the fact that you even went so far as to relocate for this interview to some place where I'm glad you were so concerned about lighting. You're a real pro.
Well, it looked like shit, man. I was like, oh fuck, I can't do this anymore. Well, see, and the thing is that I'm like at my girlfriend's, right? I'm lizard sitting, and I'm taking care of her place, and her kids here, but she's got a kid and a roommate, and they're doing stuff. So it's like, if I'm in the other room, like there's going to be, So I wanted to get somewhere where, the lighting was pretty cool, but also. Well,
I appreciate that, man. I really do. Yeah. And I appreciate you spending so much time and just being generous with your time in general. And hopefully we could stay in touch. And when some new music comes out, we could certainly do this again. If I'd be honored. It'd be great.
Fuck yeah! And I want to watch Menno's podcast.
Oh yeah. I will link up with Menno. Unfortunately, the other night's cancellation was we've been kind of batting it back and forth, and he's been very gracious. He's actually usually been the one to reach out to me and say, even prematurely a couple days ahead of time, hey, I know I said this Wednesday, it's just not looking good. And he's always very apologetic and backpedaling. And I'm just like, look, I'm just a guy with a day job doing a podcast. I'm like, no worries. We'll get on the same page. We get on the same page. Now, this past Wednesday was on me because we had a storm in this area and I didn't have a great internet connection at all. And I certainly don't want to put up interviews, that are grainy or crappy. That was why I was a little worried when you said you were going to go to a park, because I'm like, oh, is he going to be all pixelated? This actually worked out extremely well, though. Like, well, I don't know where you are, but you've got a great connection there.
I'm in her backyard, and
the
phone is on her trampoline.
You improvised nicely too, I will say.
That was the idea.
So when professional grade.
Also things to talk to him about. He records classical music.
Yes, I saw that. Yes. He's very steeped in the Mozart and the Bach, and
and he's a huge sci-fi reader. He's got a ton of he's read a ton of sci-fi.
I appreciate the tips. I appreciate the tips because I do like these to be very free form, but I obviously usually do have a sheet in front of me with some bullet points, and I like to be, at least up to speed on what people are currently doing and, have some type of knowledge about the person that I'm talking to. But I kind of just like to kind of shoot from the hip and just kind of keep it kind of freestyle. But I do appreciate some tips on stuff to talk to him about, though. That's it's always good. It's always good to have a map of where you want to go. You
can edit this part out if you.
No,
talking about men.
Hey, listen. I'm a 50-year-old guy. I tell people, I do a little preamble at the beginning before I even bring the guest in. And I'm the first person to say at almost 50 years old, I don't know. I'm just getting better with the YouTube editor, and being able to kind of like, put descriptions in and choose my thumbnail for the interview. But for the most part, editing and all that stuff, I'm pretty, I'm like the equivalent of like somebody that would be dancing that would say they have 2 left feet. I'm kind of that way with technology. I'm sure you can relate. Like if something's broken with my technology or my computer or phone, I'm going to my kids. Sometimes I'm even going to my grandkids, and they're all under fucking 10 years old, and they still know more. They still know more about technology than I do. It wasn't part of our era growing up.
Oh, no, I'm pretty good with technology.
I'm getting there.
Partly because it's always been part of my work, so I've kind of
it's like society's forcing you into having to get good at it though, because like now, like you panic more if you can't find your cell phone. When the old days it was like if you lost your wallet or your purse, you were having a meltdown. But now everything is in that goddamn phone. You're
I didn't even get a smartphone until Christmas of 2018.
Yeah,
I still had a fucking flip phone.
Oh, I love my flip phone. I love my flip phone. As soon as they started to go to all this touchscreen stuff and everything, I kind of went along with it, but it was definitely kicking and screaming.
Like it got to the point where, wait, I can't get an Uber on this fucking flip phone. That's a problem.
Yeah, or if I want to send a text, message and the first word begins with L, I've got to press my button 3 times. God,
yeah. I got good with that shit. I got real good with that. I could fucking.
I bet you did. Like, yeah,
electronic football.
Are you a big sports fan?
I have been. Like I said, I played soccer for
you
many
mentioned
years.
the soccer. Yeah.
So believe me, I've seen every World Cup and I've watched plenty of soccer. It's not a priority to me anymore, though. I still, my son will send me clips or we'll occasionally watch a game together. Yeah. But I don't find as much joy in watching sports as I used to. And I think the fandom is completely out of control now.
Yeah.
You got these fucking wacko football fans and every fan is, it's just like, I can enjoy the athleticism and I can enjoy the sport, but when it comes to the commercialism and everything behind it that drives it, it's kind of off-putting to me.
And now you had mentioned that you were gonna after we got done here, you were gonna go get some exercise, and you mentioned skating. Are we talking roller or skateboarding?
I still skate, not roller. I could probably roller skate, but I don't want to fuck with that anymore. I still I longboard these days.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of it is just my son and I started to longboard for distance back in about 2016 or so, and we would just cover like 10 or 12 miles in a day and just go places we'd never been before, like drive to some spot and start. They have like trails here, like the Interurban Trail goes all the way through Washington State, and it's non-motorized, so you can bike from one end of Washington to the other. And so we would hook up on different parts of that trail and occasionally find big hills that were great.
And that's a beautiful part of the country too, the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. So I still like to do that. I still like to get out and I like to skate just for distance and for exercise. And I like to walk and I'll hike with my girlfriend too. It's hard to keep up with her. She likes to do really radical hiking. But I was able to keep up with her pretty well a couple weeks ago.
And does the lyric still apply to this day? If someone hassles you, try giving them a 10 and then they'll never bother you again?
Fuck no. Fuck that.
Because if that was the case, I would be rolling around with a wallet full of $10 bills. I mean, Jesus, times have changed, but I love that lyric though.
I mean, yeah, and I didn't write that lyric because in my experience, if you give somebody a 10, they will never fucking get off your back.
You're never getting rid of them.
For your fucking life. So it sounds great, but
it does sound. It does sound great. You probably just bought yourself an enabler that's going to suck the lifeblood out of you.
That's right.
Listen, hey, Les, I can literally sit here and chop it up with you all day, man. It's been a blast talking to you, man. And I will definitely stay in touch, man. And we'll have to do this again. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Had a good time.
Yeah, Les, thank you so much, buddy. Have a good rest of your day, bud. All right.
You too.
Later.
Bye-bye.
There you have it. That is Les Evans. He doesn't do a lot of these, so that was special. He is from legendary, and I know, here's Rex, there you go again, throwing that term around, legendary band, CRYPTIC SLAUGHTER, and if you don't know who the fuck they are, man, boy, you have lived some kind of sheltered and really sad life. Go back and check out CRYPTIC SLAUGHTER. You can start with Convicted, their album from 1986, and then the one that's really, really probably their staple is an album in 1987 called Money Talks. And then in 1988, they put out Stream of Consciousness, and then Speak Your Piece in 1990. They were relatively inactive for a long time, but if you like crushing, groove oriented but fast as fuck, how the hell you can fuse those two together? But these guys did it. Go check out CRYPTIC SLAUGHTER and be looking for new music from them in the future. As you heard Les say, that is Les Evans, one hell of a guitar player, one hell of a great guy. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Thanks for tuning in to Pod Scum, and remember, take it easy and keep it sleazy.